You're sitting in a 9-year-old Honda. The engine's off. The heat's starting to climb inside the cab. Through the windshield, you can see a soccer field, a scatter of kids in matching jerseys, a coach yelling something about spacing. You've got a lukewarm coffee in the cup holder and a small crack in the dashboard that's been there since year 4. The fabric on the driver's seat is starting to wear thin, right where your left hand rests on the door when you turn. Nothing about this moment looks like anything, and that's the point. Because right now, sitting in this parking lot, waiting for practice to end, you are worth more, on paper, than most of the people driving past you in their leased SUVs. Not a little more, substantially more. The kind of number that would surprise the neighbors. The kind of number that would change how people at the barbecue looked at you, if they ever found out. They won't find out. You didn't get here by driving something that announced it. You got here by driving something that said nothing at all. How does a guy end up sitting on a portfolio worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in a car that still has a cassette adapter jammed in the tape deck? That's the part worth understanding. Rewind. 9 years. You're 26. First real promotion. The kind of raise that feels like it changes everything. And it does change everything, just not in the way most people let it. Here's what almost happened. You almost walked into a dealership. You almost sat across from a guy in a polo shirt who called you champ and slid a payment sheet across the table like it was a gift. $680 a month. 69 months. New truck, new smell, new you. You did the math instead. $680 a month for 6 years is just under $50,000, not counting insurance, not counting the interest baked into that low monthly payment they were so proud of, not counting what that truck would be worth the day you drove it off the lot, which is instantly measurably less than what you paid for it. A car is the only major purchase most people make that starts losing value the second they own it. You buy a house, it might appreciate. You buy stock, it might appreciate. You buy a truck, and the moment you turn the key, it's already worth less than it was 10 minutes ago in the showroom. So instead, you did something almost embarrassingly boring. You kept the car you already had, a used sedan, paid off, with 110,000 miles on it. You took that $700 a month, because let's be honest, the reasonable version of that truck payment was still going to run you close to $700 once you added insurance, and you didn't spend it. You automated it, same day your paycheck landed, before you could second guess it, before you could feel it in your checking account long enough to justify anything. $700 moved into a brokerage account, index funds, nothing exotic. Nothing you had to think about twice a week, no spreadsheets, no late-night research binges, just a standing order, quietly executing itself in the background of your life, month after month, whether you remembered it was happening or not. That was the whole strategy. Not a hustle, not a side business, not a crypto call that tripled overnight, not a stock tip from a guy at the gym who swore he'd found the next big thing. Just $700 moved before you could miss it, month after month, for 9 years, through raises. Through a layoff scare that turned out fine, through a kitchen renovation you paid for in cash instead of touching the account, through a year where the market dropped and every headline told you to panic, and you didn't, because panicking was never part of the plan. That's the architecture. That's the entire blueprint. It's not complicated. It was never supposed to be complicated. It just required you to be the kind of person who could sit in a used car and not feel like it meant anything about who you were. It required you to separate your net worth from your curb appeal and to be quietly, stubbornly okay with that gap. Now picture the guy at your office. You know the one. Every company has him. He got the same raise you did, maybe a slightly bigger one. And the day it hit his account, he was already looking at the new model. Not because he needed it, because he could technically afford the payment. That's the trap, by the way. I can afford the payment, and I can afford the car are two completely different sentences. The payment is designed to feel affordable. That's its entire job. The car itself, the depreciation, the insurance bump, the higher octane gas, the while I'm at it upgrades, the bigger tires because the old ones don't match anymore. That's the part that never shows up on the sticker and never makes it into the conversation at the dealership. You watched him do this 3 times in 9 years. New raise, new car. New raise, new car. Each one a little shinier than the last. Each one financed a little further out. Each one immediately, silently, worth less than what he owed on it. He traded in the second one before it was even paid off, rolling the negative equity into the next loan like it was nothing. Like debt was just a number that followed him around and didn't actually mean anything. Nobody in the office ever asked him how that math worked. Nobody ever does. Asking would be rude. So instead, everyone just admired the truck. He'd pull into the parking lot, and you could feel the whole lot notice. That was kind of the point. The car wasn't transportation anymore. It was an announcement. A press release on wheels, renewed every 18 months, financed a little further out each time. You never said anything to him about it. Why would you? He wasn't asking for your opinion, and you weren't in the business of handing it out for free. But you noticed. You noticed that his Flash was rented. Financed, technically, but functionally, rented. 96 months of rented status, over and over, on repeat. And you noticed that your quiet was owned. Fully, boringly, unglamorously owned. Title in a folder in a drawer you hadn't opened in years because there was nothing left to do with it. His car depreciated by roughly the same amount every year that your investment account appreciated. Same starting point, 9 years ago. 2 completely different endings. One of you was buying a feeling, the other one was buying time. Here's the part nobody puts in the highlight reel. Your brother-in-law got a bonus last spring. Not enormous, a few $1,000s, but big enough that it burned a hole in his pocket. He called you, excited, wanting your take on financing a new truck. Wanted to know if you thought it was a smart move, timing-wise, rate-wise, whether now was a good time to buy. The way people ask questions when they've already made up their mind and just want someone to agree with them. And you had to sit there and lie. Not with words, exactly. With omission. You told him it depends on his situation. You told him rates weren't great right now. You gave him the generic, harmless answer that any financially responsible person might give a family member who's already decided and just wants permission, dressed up as advice. What you didn't tell him was the actual number in your account. What you didn't tell him was that the $700 a month he was about to commit to a truck payment was almost exactly the number that had quietly built your entire portfolio, dollar by boring dollar, over nearly a decade. You could have told him. Some version of you wanted to. Some version of you wanted to pull up the account on your phone and say, look, this is what patience looks like. This is what 9 years of nothing happening actually adds up to. This is the version of you that nobody at the family barbecue has ever met. But you knew what would happen if you did. The conversation wouldn't be about him anymore. It would be about you. Suddenly you're the guy with money. Suddenly every family gathering has a different texture to it. Suddenly you're fielding just a small loan requests, or worse, the silent resentment of people who assumed you were exactly where they were, and now have to recalculate. So you said nothing. You drove home in the 9-year-old Honda, and you sat in the driveway for a minute before going inside, because that's the part of this that never gets talked about, the isolation. Nobody warns you that the real cost of building quiet wealth isn't the sacrifice of a nicer car. It's the sacrifice of being fully known by the people closest to you. You edit yourself, constantly, not out of shame, out of protection, for the relationship, and honestly, for yourself. You become the guy who's doing fine. Just fine. Comfortable. Nothing to see here. Your own family doesn't know the truth about your finances, and some part of you wonders if that's a small failure, even while another part of you knows it's the only thing keeping the peace at Sunday dinner. And there's a specific kind of loneliness in that, in being financially secure and emotionally unable to share it with the people who love you most. Because the sharing itself would change everything. Because money, once it's known, changes the shape of every relationship it touches, whether you want it to or not. So, 9 years later, here you are. The number finally crossed the threshold you'd quietly set for yourself when you were 26 and sitting across from a guy in a polo shirt who called you champ. You hit it on a Tuesday. You checked the account from your phone, in this same parking lot, waiting for the same kind of practice to end. And nothing happened. No confetti, no call to celebrate. You didn't even tell your spouse until later that night, and even then it was a quiet mention over dishes, not a toast. She nodded, said, "That's great, honey," and asked if you'd remembered to take the trash out. And somehow, that felt exactly right. The Honda still has the crack in the dashboard. You still packed a lunch today. That's the part that surprises people when they finally picture it. They imagine the moment of arrival as loud. It isn't. It's the same parking lot, the same folding chair, the same lukewarm coffee. The only thing that changed is a number on a screen that almost nobody in your life will ever see, and that will never once show up in the way you're introduced at a party. Maybe that's the actual definition of freedom. Not the version where everyone watches you arrive. The version where you arrive and nobody notices, and it doesn't matter because you were never building it for them in the first place. So here's the question worth sitting with. The next time you're the one behind the wheel, waiting for someone else's practice to end, are you building something? Or are you just trying to look like you already have? Think about the last major purchase you made. Not the groceries, not the coffee, not the small stuff that doesn't move the needle either way. The big one. The one with a monthly payment attached to it. Ask yourself, honestly, did you buy that because you needed it? Or did you buy it because somebody might see you in it? There's no judgment in the question. Most people never even get asked it. They go their whole lives upgrading, financing, refreshing, and nobody ever sits them down and asks them to explain the math out loud. The dealership certainly isn't going to ask. Neither is the bank. Neither is the friend who says "nice truck" in the parking lot, because that friend is thinking about his own payment, not yours. You asked yourself that question 9 years ago, sitting in a used car outside a dealership you never walked into. And the answer changed the entire trajectory of your life, quietly, one automated transfer at a time, without a single dramatic moment along the way. Nobody's going to hand you a plaque for it. Nobody's going to post about it. There's no finish line with a ribbon, no confetti cannon, no moment where the crowd turns and applauds. Just a number on a screen, and a Honda in a parking lot, and a soccer game that's about to end. That's the whole secret, if you can even call it that. It was never a secret. It was just boring enough that nobody wanted to hear it.